Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really going to unpack some stuff that shapes our world, things we often just, well, take for granted. We're digging into the bedrock concepts of how societies get organized, how they're governed, and, how they actually work day to day. We've got some great material here from TextNote.ai, and our mission really is to cut through the jargon. We want to give you a super clear, concise handle on terms like state, government, and the different kinds of law that honestly shape everything around us. Think of it as your fast track to being genuinely informed. I'm actually expecting some real aha moments for you here.
And that's so important because understanding these foundational bits isn't just for lawyers or political scientists.
Not all.
It's really crucial for anyone who wants to get a grip on how systems work, both globally and, right in your own community. How decisions get made, how your own rights are defined, how they're protected. It affects everyone, whatever your field is.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start with what sounds simple but has a really specific meaning here. What exactly is a nation or a state? Our source points to it being a defined political entity with a permanent population, a government, a territory, and sovereignty. Sovereignty to make and enforce laws within its borders. And the key thing to grasp, I think, is this isn't just theory.
No, not at all.
It's the basis for international recognition for how countries interact, that idea of sovereignty especially.
Absolutely critical, that sovereignty piece. It means within its own borders, the state is the top dog, the ultimate authority. No other power, no external country gets to dictate its laws or decisions. It's independent, self-governing.
Right.
And that's where the government fits in. If the state is the, let's say, the abstract entity, the nation, then the government is the concrete doing part. It's the organization or system through which a state or community is governed and exercises authority.
Yeah.
So it's the operational arm, the machinery, the actual institutions running the show.
Exactly. The state is the what, the government is the who and how it gets run. So you've got the sovereign state, you've got the government operating it, but what tool does the government use to, well, keep things in order? That brings us to law. It's the primary mechanism. Our source says law is a system of rules created and enforced to regulate behavior and maintain order. It's basically the framework that stops everything from descending into chaos, right? Makes society possible.
Precisely.
The rule book. Now, here's where I think it gets really, really interesting, and it might change how you think about law. It's this distinction between substantive law and procedural law. Think of it like this. Substantive law tells you what your rights and duties are. What's legal, what's illegal, what constitutes a crime. Our source defines it as governing actual rights and duties, defining crimes, rights, and obligations. So, the rule don't steal, that's substantive.
That's the core rule itself.
Exactly. But then you have procedural law, and that's the how. It's the processes and rules for enforcing those rights and duties in courts. So how do you actually file a lawsuit? What are the steps in a criminal trial? That's all procedural.
Yeah, it's like knowing the rules of chess. That's substantive law. But knowing how the pieces move, how to challenge an opponent's move, what happens when you say checkmate, that's procedural. And this distinction, it really matters to you, the listener, because knowing your rights is one thing. But understanding how those rights are actually defended or challenged in the real world, that's crucial. Knowing the what without the how can leave you kind of stuck if you ever need to use the system.
Good analogy. So we've got the rules themselves, the what, and the process for enforcing them, the how. But who are these rules applied to? Or rather, what kind of situations? This brings us to another key pair, civil law and criminal law. Civil law is about disputes between private parties, things like contracts, property disputes, maybe personal injury claims like torts. So if you have a disagreement with your neighbor over a fence, or if a company breaks a contract with you, that's usually civil law.
It's person versus person or entity versus entity.
Right. But criminal law, that involves laws that define and punish crimes against the state or society. Here, it's not just you versus someone else. It's the state representing society, saying an act harms the community as a whole, like theft, assault, murder. The state prosecutes these cases.
Yeah, and this distinction really shapes everyday life, maybe more than we realize. Civil law governs so many of our interactions, buying things, renting an apartment, even, like you said, minor accidents. It's about resolving disputes and often involve compensation. Criminal law is about public safety, defining what's unacceptable behavior for the community, and punishment or rehabilitation is often the goal. Two very different functions.
Definitely. Different aims, different players, different consequences. So, okay, we have all these specific laws, civil, criminal, substantive, procedurals. But where they get their ultimate authority from, what's the foundational document? In many places, like the example from Nepal in our source, it's the Constitution. It's described as the supreme fundamental law. It defines the state's structure, its powers, its duties, it guarantees fundamental rights, and crucially, it establishes things like the sovereignty of the people, and in Nepal's case, that it's a federal democratic republic.
And what's really fascinating about a constitution, I think, is how it acts as this ultimate blueprint. It sets the rules for the rule makers. It establishes the government's power, but also, very importantly, its limits. It protects individual freedoms from potential government overreach. All other laws have to basically align with it. It's the highest law, the source of legitimacy.
So the Constitution is the big picture, the ultimate framework. But how do those grand principles translate into, day-to-day governance? That's where you get things like an act, rules, circulars, and directives. These are described as legal instruments made by the legislative body, parliament, or authorized government agencies. Their job is to implement, administer, and guide the application of laws under the Constitution. They're the practical tools.
Right. Think of it as a hierarchy. The Constitution is at the very top, the grand design. Then Parliament passes an act, like, say, an Education Act,
Yeah.
that sets out the main structure and goals for education. Then the Ministry of Education might issue rules that specify exactly how schools should operate under that act. Curriculum details, teacher qualifications, stuff like that. Much more granular.
Getting down into the details.
Exactly. And then circulars might be internal guidance for officials on interpreting a specific rule, maybe how to handle admissions. And a directive could be a very specific instruction, maybe on implementing a new safety protocol urgently. It's a cascade from broad principles to specific actions.
That makes sense. It's a way to make those big constitutional ideas actually work on the ground. And just to be clear on who makes the primary laws, our source, referencing Nepal specifically, says law is made by the parliament legislature in Nepal. And it reminds us why all this exists. The purpose of law is to regulate social order, protect rights, provide justice, and ensure good governance for the welfare and progress of the nation and its people. It's all meant to build a stable, fair society.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Well, it means that basically everything you do, signing a lease, driving your car, your feeling of safety in your community, your ability to vote, it's all underpinned by these concepts. The state providing the territory and sovereignty, the government operating within limits, and these layers of law from the Constitution down to specific rules, creating a predictable framework. It's this invisible architecture that, ideally, allows society to function smoothly and protects your place within it, even if you don't think about it often.
And that wraps up our deep dive for today. We went from the big idea of a state all the way down to the nitty-gritty of legal directives. We really wanted to give you that shortcut to understanding the structures that, govern our lives. Hopefully we hit those aha moments and maybe gave you a new lens to see things through.
And maybe just one final thought for you to take away and chew on. Consider just how deeply these concepts state government law in its various forms shape your daily life, your interactions, your rights, even your sense of security. Even when they're totally invisible, they're there. So the question becomes, now that you understand them a bit better, what responsibilities might that knowledge imply for you, for how you engage with the world? Something to think about.